Hi, welcome to HowtoDandD. My name is Fred Wheeler and today I want to talk about Dungeons & Dragons 5e, and today I'm doing something that I don't normally do. I'm going to show you how to create your own character. I'm only going to be looking at building your character to level 1 rather than multiple levels because that would be an incredibly long video. And the tool I'm going to use is something you can access on the internet. And the reason I'm using D&D Beyond is not because D&D Beyond is paying me, because they are not. They haven't asked me. I've simply seen this and I feel that because it's such a good tool and so easy to sort of navigate through, it's the best way to show you how to build your own character, particularly if you are new to doing that sort of thing. And the other feature to it that I really like is it is free. Now I'm only going to show you the free options. Anything that's outside of the free SRD or standard reference document, I'm not going to touch that stuff, okay? Now you will need to have a Twitch account, so you need to go and sign up to Twitch to be able to access D&D Beyond. But other than that, no money needs to change hands, okay? So you can do this yourself. I have provided a link to the website down in the description. Okay, so we've got a few people in the room. So first off, we're going to go to the top here, and it has characters. Now you can build with your free version of this website. You can build 6 characters. After that, you have to start paying. So delete some that you don't need. So if you go to characters, you'll notice down here it says character builder. So I'm going to hit the character builder. There are 3 options to building your character. You can use the randomized character build. You can use the quick build, which we're not going to be using today. We're going to use the standard option. Okay, this is where you create a character by making choices and using a step-by-step approach. So I'm going to also click on the little box here beside the question mark. This will show me text, ideal for beginners. Okay, literally really effective if you wanted to sort of see the whole process. I'm going to be using a human today. I could be using something else, but I felt like a human was probably easier to sort of work with. Certainly you could build a wood elf fighter, an archer. Now when you hit the first page for your creation, you'll see along the top here it says home, 1 race, 2 class, 3 abilities, 4 description, 5 equipment, and then what's next. Now this is a step-by-step approach. This is how you would normally build your character in terms of laying it out. It also talks about the character creation process. It talks about levels and preferences, all of that. It's all there. Now you're welcome to read through this information if you want to. It's fairly generic in nature though. Alright, so I'm going to hit the next button, which is a little blue arrow, and now I'm going to create a character because I don't want it to be called Frederick Wheeler 129's character. That's not really what I want. So instead what I'm going to do is I'm going to click the randomize button. Now you can type in here any name you can. If you feel you want to give your character a name, you can. You could call it not, or whatever. Or you can randomize it. Just hit the random button and it should give you a random name. Mini B. I don't really like Mini B, so we'll hit the button again, and you can hit it as many times as you like. Dickie. It sounds too dirty. It's moving on. And we're going to hit it a couple more times until we get something that I can pronounce and I like. So, for those people who really struggle finding names, Ursa. We'll stick with Ursa. I can handle that name. So we're going to stick with that one name. You can pick anything you like. You can also add a little picture for your character. So there's a little plus sign here with a box. Hit that and it will bring up like a whole lot of little portraits, and you just go through there and you find the one that you think is most suitable for your character. And I'm just going to cycle through here a little bit. I'm looking for something that's suitable for a fighter. It doesn't need to have one that's got armor covering it. So if you're wondering, you know, what should I pick? It doesn't have to be that. I'm going to pick this one here and apply. And that will add it to the top there. You can see the character now has a name and a little picture to go with it. And that's going to be really helpful when you print out your character sheet. And yes, you can print out your character sheet. Okay, it has a couple of options here. Character preferences. Homebrew content. I don't want to use homebrew content, so I'm going to switch that off. I want to make sure that you can use exactly what I've got. Critical Role content. Yes, you can actually click this on and it will add Critical Role content, but I'm not going to do that. I'm going to turn it back off again. Playtest content. That means everything from Unearthed Arcana. You can click that on and access that if you wanted to. Now that's all free, so you don't have to worry about paying for that stuff, okay? Eberron content. I'm going to turn that off because unless you have, most of it now is either part of Unearthed Arcana. There might be still a little bit that is available only as the free, the paid PDF. So rather than get into hassles with that, I'm going to just ignore it completely. Okay. Oh, now we're going to move down and there's advancement. Now I can select the type of advancement my Dungeon Master might be using. Now milestones is where you simply level up when the Dungeon Master says you are ready to level up. Now I can pick that, or I can go with XP. That's where I earn experience points and I simply accrue and add that up as I go. So I'm going to go with experience points because my Dungeon Master currently is using experience points rather than milestones. But you do have the option. So now we can confirm that. We are switching it to XP. Encumbrance. Not all Dungeon Masters use the same rules for encumbrance. So I can select to use encumbrance rules, I can select to not use encumbrance rules, or I can use the variant encumbrance rules, which are a little bit more, I wouldn't say accurate, I would say they are probably more advanced. I'm going to go with we'll use encumbrance rules because my Dungeon Master is expecting us to use encumbrance rules, but really it doesn't come up that often. Next, will I ignore the coin weight in my calculations? I'm going to leave that on, and now here it has hit point type. So this is when you're leveling up and you have to increase your hit points. You can either increase it by a fixed value, which is like the average, or you can manually enter it in after you have rolled the value on a dice. So whatever your dice is for your hit points, you would roll that. And so I'm going to go with, you can select manual when you're rolling your hit points, or you go with fixed. I tend to go with fixed because I want to just flatten out the maths rather than wind up with a character that might roll a whole lot of ones. I'm prone to rolling ones and twos. Okay, so next, ability score and modifier display. So when the character sheet gets printed out, it's going to display certain things as being more important. So what's more important to me? Is it the ability score, which is the big number, or the modifier? I feel the modifier being larger and at the top is more important to me than anything else. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave it on modifier rather than going on to something like the ability score itself. Okay, character privacy. So I can decide to make it private or public. I'm going to just leave it on public because I don't really care if anybody sees this anyway. Now once I've done that, I'm going to hit the blue button to go to the next step. And that'll take me over to races. Now this breaks it down, talks about the different races we have available. When it comes to races, honestly, you can pick anything you like. You do not have to pick a race with traits that are in line with the kind of class you're playing. That's not how the game works. But it breaks it down, it talks about the types of things you're likely to get. Usually you get an ability score increase. It gives you an idea of roughly an explanation about age. Really, most Dungeon Masters don't even bring age into it, so I don't think you need to worry about it. Alignment, that's really a description of how your character generally seems to operate, or their general tendencies in the world. It doesn't determine what the character does, and I don't want to get into an argument about that. It is just a description. Okay, next, the size of your character, whether you are medium or small, and then it gives you your speed and languages. These are things you can speak, read, and write. You will get some languages, and then of course not all races have just one type of race. There's sub races as well, so you can have like hill giant, not hill giants, hill dwarfs and mountain dwarfs. And of course, as somebody has already pointed out, you can have a wood elf or a high elf. And even humans have some options. So we're going to hit next and start building our race up. So now we have a choice. I want to limit the sources that I use. So it says all sources, but I don't really want to use absolutely every single source, because if I do that and I go for the player's handbook, not absolutely everything is available. So I'm just going to go with the basic rules rather than get too carried away. So I'm going to hit that. You can leave it on all. the Elemental Evil Player's Companion is free, so you can still access that if you wanted to. You can hit that button and that will access that as well. Particularly if you want those options, they don't cost you anything. Alright, next, these are my options. That's just the basic rules. So I have access to a Dragonborn, Dwarf, there's 2 sub-races, there's 3 sub-races of Elf. I can have the Half-Elf, which is pretty cool. I can have a Half-Orc, I can have two Halflings if I want. I've got access to the Human, and the Human gets a base race and a variant. There's also the Rock Gnome, and then you get the Tiefling or Tiefling and the Esma, which is a variant rule. But you still get access to those, and that's just with the basic rule set. So I'm going to go Human, and it'll pull down a little couple of options there. I'm going to select the one that I want. This is this one here, and it tells me exactly what I get when I select Human. So they're pretty adaptable, ambitious, and you know they are the common races in Faerun or the Forgotten Realms. So I'm going to get a +1 to all of my ability scores. Okay, that's always nice. And I also get an extra language, also good as well. And it breaks it down and explains to you what's going to happen, gives you a little bit of information. These can be reduced and increased if you want. Alignment, size, speed, all broken down. So I'm going to choose that race. It's a Human today. I will get more creative plus I just wanted to keep this simple for today. It's the first time I'm trying to do this. So I don't need to go and select any ability scores for this particular build because every single ability score is going to get increased by 1. That's quite a lot. Most races don't get as many increases as that. Usually they get an increase of 2 to 1 ability score and another +1 to one of the other ability scores. And it's usually predetermined based off the race that you're using. But this means you get pretty much twice as much because you're playing Human. Okay, now I'm going to pick a language. And these are the languages that you speak, read, and write. So I'm going to already know Common, so I don't need to worry about Common, so don't forget about worrying about that. What I can do is I can select another language. I'm going to go with Goblin. You do not need to pick Goblin. You could pick Orc, you could pick Dwarven. It really depends on how you sort of built your character and what you want them to be able to understand. Have a discussion with your Dungeon Master to see what they think is reasonable. I think it's a little bit silly to have languages where nothing that you speak will ever come up during the campaign, but you know, other Dungeon Masters might see the issue slightly differently. Okay, so I've done my race stuff, and now we're going to jump over to class. Now it talks a little bit about the classes, and we'll talk briefly about the fighter in a second. For those of you who think that fighters are not very versatile and can't be flexible, that's not true. Multi-classing, a little bit more complicated. We're going to leave multi-classing alone for today. We're only building a level 1 character anyway. Okay, so now I want to pick my class, and here it is, there it is. So I get access to all of the classes, if you were worried. I won't get access to every single archetype, for those of you who are wondering, when you're using the basic rules, but that doesn't matter because we're only going to level 1. So I'm going to select that. Now that tells me how many hit points I get at level 1, which is basically at level 1 you get 10, whatever the highest you could roll on a 10-sided dice. That's the hit dice for a fighter, plus your constitution modifier, whatever that might be. Hit points then increase after that. You either roll a 10-sided dice to determine what it will be and add your constitution modifier, or you can take the average or a fixed value, which is 6. And I'm doing this today. So I'm taking 6 plus my constitution modifier rather than rolling dice. It gives you your proficiencies. Now fighters, essentially you're going to get access to all armor. So that's the light, medium, and heavy, and shields. You get access to simple weapons and martial weapons. So you get access to all of them. You are able to use everything, very general in your abilities. You don't get any tool proficiencies, but we can pick something up like that when we get our background. Your saving throws that you will be proficient with, that's things that you are good at, are going to be strength and constitution. And then you also get to pick 2 skills, which we will go through very shortly. And then you're going to get some fighting styles, and it'll go over that as well. you're going to get your second wind, which is your ability to, I guess, recover in the middle of combat without taking a short rest. Now, this whole thing will highlight everything you get as you level up. And one of the things I like about it is that it does explain pretty reasonably what's going on. We don't need to know all of these things. So action surge at level 2, martial archetypes at level 3, your ability score improvements at various levels, the first one being at level 4, provided you haven't multi-classed, extra attack at level 5, and on and on and on. So all of that is talked about, and we'll come back to all of this at some point. But otherwise, we're going to pick this class. So selecting it. Okay, now that we've got that, I'm going to have a look through here and just see what's going on. So my hit points, I can change my level, so I don't have to start my character off at level 1. I could start it off at any level I like. I can go straight to it, or I can level it up one step at a time. Okay, so completely up to you. Hit points, as we already discussed, we don't need to do that again. It's already going to be determined. Okay, and then next, our proficiencies are here, all listed. Now, I need to get a couple of skills. I get to pick 2 skills. So we're going to go in here and I'm going to pick up athletics because I expect that the fighter I'm going to build is going to be more strength-based. Now, you can build a fighter who is quite variable in their style, whether they focus on archery, focus on defense, maybe they dual-wield weapons, maybe they use one great huge weapon, maybe they're more into protection, maybe they're a jeweler and just use one weapon, one hand. You can focus on 2-weapon fighting, all that sort of stuff. Okay, so I'm just going to be building it a particular way. So I'm going to go with athletics because I expect the build that I'm going to use is going to be more strength focused. And then I'm also going to pick up perception because I can. And I think probably the most common skill that you will ever use is perception. Out of all of the skills that you might have access to, it's the role that you make the most. Now, you do not need to do it this way. You can select intimidation or insight or history or something like that, but I'm going to go with perception. Okay, so we've done our 2 skills for our class, and now we get the option of picking a fighting style. And as I discussed, we have, oops, sorry, I'm just going to do that again. We have archery, defense, dueling, so that's with one weapon. I'm going to go with great weapon fighting. This is when you have one weapon and you hold it in 2 hands and you do a lot of damage because usually it's like a great sword or a great axe. Okay, so I've selected that. It's just loading it up. I've already got my second wind, and for those of you who aren't familiar with second wind, I'm pretty sure I covered that in the tutorial. And then the little plus sign here just breaks down and shows you everything you get at different levels. Okay, so we've done the class aspect of it. We've done our selection. So go next. This will take us over to abilities. Now we need to decide what sort of things we're going to focus on. And there's a couple of ways you can do this. You can roll your dice and enter them in manually into the character builder. You can use the point buy system where you spend a certain number of points and that will determine what your scores will be, so you have a lot more control over it. And you also have the option to use the standard array. For the sake of my sanity, I'm going to go with standard array. If anybody feels that they would prefer to see me do it by point buy, you'll let me know. Now, the things I'm probably going to focus on for this fighter is strength, because I'm going to use him more up close rather than at distance. And I'm probably going to put some heavy armor on him, so I'm not going to be focusing on dexterity quite so much because it's not going to be very useful to me. But something like strength and constitution and possibly wisdom will be the things that I'll want to pick up. Okay, so we'll go next. And now we have our option. This is going to show us all of our modifiers and how they're added. But we've got to select our method first. So ability score, what's my method of choice? Okay, as I said, point buy, manual, or standard array. I'm going to go with standard array. You get set figures and you just plonk them in where you need them to go. So I've done that. So the biggest number I want to go into strength because I want to have a strength-based fighter. Dexterity, I plan to eventually wear plate armor. So that means my dexterity is really not going to help me. It would help me if I was making ranged attacks, but I'm probably not going to be focusing quite so much on that, and I'll just use thrown weapons. So I'll focus on my strength. So I'm going to go with something that's a little bit lower. I'm probably going to pick up something like a 10, pretty standard. And then I'm going to go with my constitution. I'm going to make that the next highest one. And then I'm going to pick up something like intelligence. I'm probably going to dump my lowest score into intelligence for this particular character build. My wisdom, I'm going to go with a 13. I actually want a fairly high wisdom so I can actually see danger when it arrives. And then my charisma, now I don't need to do it this way. I could dump my charisma, I could switch them around. So my charisma doesn't have to be 12, but I feel like there might be times where I want to actually communicate and have some role play aspects to my character. And if I dump it in an 8 into charisma, which is often what people tend to do, then I sort of write myself out of the ability to assist and aid somebody else in the conversation with NPCs. You can also switch around the 12 to the dexterity and the 10 to charisma if you wanted to. But it doesn't really matter. This is just basically how I'm building it for today. Now you'll see for strength, it shows you what your total score is. This adds your modifier for strength. It adds in your, it shows you your base score that you put in. It shows any racial bonuses that you get. And I get a +1 for all of them. And anything else that might be applicable. So that's basically my total scores. You'll see that my strength winds up being 16, dexterity 11, constitution is 15, and then we get a 9 for intelligence, a 14 total for wisdom, which is quite high, charisma is 13. Okay, so now that I've done that, I can go next. And we're going to move on and we'll deal with descriptions. This is where we start selecting our background. Now with backgrounds, there's lots of different options. I really like backgrounds because it helps flesh things out. It describes and talks a little bit about them, but we're going to go next and get into it right now. Now I can select here a number of different options based off the basic rules. So there's a lot more backgrounds than this. These are just the ones that I've pulled up because I only selected the basic rules, okay? So for this particular build, I'm going to go with a soldier. Now I could pick something like folk hero if I wanted, but I'm going to pick soldier instead. This is going to give me some options. This means that my service as a soldier in the past will help me when I interact with other members of my my people I served, whatever company or mercenaries or nation that I served under. So I have a connection with them. That could be useful in the future. It may not be useful, but it's possible that it could be. I'm going to get access to a couple of different things. So first off, skill proficiency. So I get intimidate. That's automatic. That's just going to drop in there straight away. And now I get to select another one. This is the great thing about backgrounds. You'll notice that my options are pretty broad for something like a soldier. And be really careful about what you select for your class when you're selecting your background skill, because you don't really want a crossover. You shouldn't be able to create a crossover, but if you're doing it on pen and paper, it's entirely possible you might accidentally make a mistake like that. And I don't want you to do that. In fact, I want it to be nice and seamless and easy for you, which is why we're using this particular piece of software in the first place. Okay, so soldier. Now, your skill proficiencies for a soldier, pretty broad. I get access to athletics and intimidation. So have you noticed how I select athletics as a proficiency or skill proficiency as part of my class? Well, that was a mistake, wasn't it? Because I don't need to do that. If I'm going to pick up soldier and I'm getting athletics and I'm getting intimidation, I should go back and change that. So what I will do, since I've already got athletics tied into there, and you'll notice that it gives you the option to do other things here. This is really dependent on your dungeon master giving you the option to do that. Some dungeon masters will allow you to be a bit more flexible rather than pick the ones that are stated in the background, but it doesn't matter because there's a button that says previous, so I can go back back to my selection for my skills, since everything else is done, and pick a different one, just to make it a little bit easier for me. It should be there. Okay, so where are my proficiencies and skills? Should be showing here. There we go. So I've got perception and athletics. So what we'll do is we'll take out that and we'll put something else in, something else that we think we might use it more often. Now we're already going to pick up intimidation as the soldier, so we don't need to worry about picking that. It's shown up straight away, so you can forget about that. We can pick something else. So I could go with insight, so it's a little bit easier to understand what other people are doing. I think that's actually not a bad choice, so we're going to pick insight. So I've changed that round, and now I can go back. So you can see how good this is. You know, you can adjust things. You might have made a mistake. It doesn't matter. You just go back through. All the choices I made before stay as they were, so I don't need to worry about it. And you can see skill proficiencies, athletics, intimidation, and the other two that I've already selected. So, easy to correct. I also get tool proficiencies in vehicles or land. So that's something like a wagon or a chariot, something like that. And now I can pick up a game set. So I could go with 3 dragon anti-set, or playing cards, or dragon chess. It's really up to you. I'm going to just go with something fairly, I wouldn't say standard. Let's go with 3 dragon anti-set. We'll click that for now. So I'm proficient with that particular game system. Now that I've done that, I've got my military rank. Now you can decide literally what your military rank is. There is a chart. You roll a 8-sided dice, and it goes from, I think 1 is officer, 2 is scout, 3 is infantry, 4 is cavalry, 3 is a healer, 6 is the quartermaster, 7 is standard bearer, and 8 is support staff. So that might be a cook or a blacksmith or something like that. So you don't need to be a front row soldier in any way. Okay, so suggested characters. This is where you start building in the nuts and bolts for your character. You have to select, or you should be selecting, at least 2 personality traits. Now I can actually just select whatever's here. I could create my own and write them in manually if I wanted to. There's an option to do that. Or I can just randomly select them by pressing the random button twice, and it will pop up. Okay, so I've got number 8. So basically it says a face problem heads on. Faces problems heads on. A simple direct solution is the best path to success. So that's one of my personality traits. I'll pick another one, and it shouldn't duplicate it. I certainly hope not. 6. I enjoy being strong and like breaking things. So that's what I'm going to stick with. Okay, so I've selected them. You won't see the final result for that until we've finished. Then we're going to go down to ideals. You can just pick what you want or make something up, or you can randomly select. So I'm going to press the random selection. I'm not really worried about it. So 6, nation. My city, nation, or people are all that matters. So this is my ideal. Okay. Next, bond. Same thing as before. I'm going to just do a random one. Okay, so this is, I fight for those who cannot fight for themselves. So very heroic, isn't it? Moving on. Last one. We always need to have a flaw for our character, even if we haven't tied one into our character. You can see with the ability scores, one of my weakest aspects is my intelligence, which is not a huge problem. You can have a high wisdom and low intelligence, and your character will operate perfectly fine. So I'm going to do random, and it's selected number 2. I have little respect for anyone who is not a proven warrior. Okay, so that is my flaw. Kind of a flaw you would expect with a lot of fighters anyway. Okay, so now that we've gone through that process of selecting them, character details, we'll just hit here. We can select our alignment. So I just drop down bar. I'm going to go with neutral good. Now I could go with lawful good if I want, or I could go with something that's more law abiding, because I'm a soldier, right? It could be lawful neutral if you feel that's more useful. There we go. We'll go with lawful neutral. How's that sound? You can pick a faith. So if you have a deity or god that you want to enter, you can plug that in if you want to. I think we'll just plug in that. I can't even remember if it's an actual god, but I've just plugged in somebody that I worship. You do not have to include this. I can pick my lifestyle. So I'm only starting out, I would say I'm going to be going with just a modest lifestyle. And then, and you might find if you're a very poor soldier, you might decide you want to go with poor, so it's only 2 silver pieces per day. Number crunching, this sort of stuff is never very fun, but if you're playing Dungeons & Dragons Adventurers League, or your Dungeon Master wants you to track this sort of thing, your lifestyle expenses, then you might need to do this. Okay, next, physical characteristics. So I'm going to go with black here, so we'll go with black. And skin color, I'm going to go with dark. Eyes, we'll go with brown. Now all of this is going to be transferred on, so we're going to go with 6 foot. Weights, let's go with 85 pounds. I don't need to type anything else other than that. Let's go with an age of about, let's say 23. Gender, we'll go with male, based on my picture. And now we're just going to pop down here. Now it says here, personal characteristics. I don't know if you can see the little writing, but this is all the things we selected. It now itemizes all the things that I selected randomly. So my personality traits are listed here. Okay, I can go in and click edit to change things if I want to. It's got my ideals, bonds and flaws. So if I go in here and edit this, I decide, well, actually I want to change things, I can. Now you can actually physically get in there and change the wording of a particular aspect of your flaw. I might decide I don't want to have that aspect, but a simple direct solution is the best path to success. And I decide the first part is just too much information. So I've just edited and it's done. So I close that and it should have made a change. There you go, it's changed it. Very simple. Next, notes. This is where you get to access pretty much any notes. If you've joined an organization, I can add a note and say maybe I am part of the Lord's Alliance. And that should close and enter that in. There we go. I have maybe some allies. I'm just going to write down Bob. I've got a friend called Bob. I can enter in any enemies that I might have. And we could put in here Zord. Oh, hang on. How do we go with Zord? Zord from the Star Wars, from Superman. Backstory. You can add in the notes for your backstory, which I'm not going to do because it'll take me too long. You don't have to have that, you know. Some people like to have a backstory, some people don't. Totally up to you. And then additional notes, you just click here. So I've done all that. I'll scroll right back up. So we're in description section and hit next. And we're moving on. And now we get to start selecting our equipment. When it comes to equipment, you can just go with the starting equipment that they give you, and you just make a couple of selections and it's done. Or you can give yourself some starting gold and you can buy everything. It's up to you. I find that if you just select the starting equipment, you're usually better off rather than buying everything with your gold. It also indicates, because we're using encumbrance, it does indicate that I need to be careful about how much I buy in terms of weight, because I have a strength score of a particular value, and I can only have 15 times my strength score, which is pretty high. 15 times 16 is huge. That's a lot of pounds in weight. So I go next, and you can add in magic items if you've been given magic items from the get-go, which I don't think that's going to be happening for me. And now I get to select whether I go equipment or gold. I'm going to go with equipment because it's faster. And now I have a couple of choices. I can select the type of armor. I'm going to go with the heavier armor, so the chainmail is heavier than and probably more effective than the leather armor, but it will give me disadvantage on stealth checks. Okay, now I get to pick a martial weapon and a shield, which I don't think is going to be much use to me, or 2 martial weapons. So I'm going to go with 2 martial weapons, and I'm going to select my first one. I'm going to go with a great sword, something nice and big, because I want to use 2 hands. Okay, and then next I can pick up another weapon, another martial weapon. I'm going to go with a bow. Now, the reason I'm picking a bow is just in case things are out of reach and I can't get at them, I'm not going to be very good with a bow, but that doesn't matter. I will at least still be able to shoot things at longer range. So I'm going to hit that. There is an option to use a light crossbow and 2 hand axes if I wanted, but I'm going to go with the longbow because it's got a longer range. And now I'm going to pick up 2 hand axes, which I can use at close quarter, or I can throw. So I'm going to select them, and then I get a choice between the Dungeon Master's pack and the Explorer's pack, and I'm going to pick the Dungeon Master's pack. Okay, a couple other things I get to pick up, and that is part of my soldier starting equipment. I get a choice between a dagger, a broken blade, and a piece of a banner. I'm going to go with a broken blade. There's a battle I've fought at some point and it's broken, and I just can't give it up. I get to select some bone dice or a deck of cards. I'm going to go with a deck of cards, so we'll select that. I've got just a set of common clothes and a pouch containing 10 gold pieces. Now, those 10 gold pieces I can still go and spend, so I can add equipment into the character if I want to. I'm going to do that right now because I'm the sort of person who likes to buy stuff that I can use that will be useful to me in some way, and what I'm going to do is click here. I've got currently nothing in my inventory. I'm going to add an item, and I'm going to do the filter. I want a healer's kit, and it should pop up healer's kit. There it is. I'm going to add that in right now. So that's added that to my inventory. Now if I want to buy something else, I don't have enough money to go and buy any sort of healing potions, but maybe I've decided that it would be really handy to have another section of rope. If I can afford it, then I can buy it. I'm not going to worry about that. That'll do for now. And our equipment has been selected. Okay, we're right near the end now. We've almost completed everything. For those of you who are wondering, okay, so what now? What can I do with this? Well, there is an option to export your character sheet that will build. Okay, you can now print it out. So you don't have to worry about having only access on a laptop or a phone or a computer screen. You can just print out a copy of it. And it's actually pretty good. I think it's a nice feature. And of course it should have been there anyway. Next, I can just view the character sheet. So I'll click View the Character Sheet. And this builds it so I can see what it looks like on the computer screen. And it's essentially got all the numbers already figured out for me. It shows me what my modifiers are for my different abilities along the top. It gives me my proficiency modifier, which I don't really need to worry about. It gives me my speed, how many, my maximum hit points. I can make adjustments as I go to my my stats, so I don't need to worry about that. It gives me my armor class, which should have, it's only 10, so that must mean that I haven't actually equipped the armor, because it should be a lot higher than that. It gives me my skills and the different values that are associated with them. Every skill that has a black dot beside it is one that I am proficient with. These are the ones that I selected. It gives me my saving throws and the values for them. It will give me my passive perception or passive wisdom score, and same thing with your passive investigation and also a passive insight, because sometimes Dungeon Masters like all those values. It gives me all of my proficiencies in languages here, Common and Goblin, and the different tools. It should give me a rundown of the different things that I have, things that I can do in combat. So I've got 2-weapon fighting for 2-weapon fighting. Is it 2-weapon fighting? Have I selected the wrong one? I may have selected the wrong one. It should be, I feel like that is an error. It should be saying the one where I have 2 hands on my weapon. Great weapon fighting. I thought I had selected great weapon fighting. Okay, so I'm going to go back and check that. I might need to make some modifications and manage it customly, which gives me my second wind. I can tick and untick that when it's been used during the game on my character sheet. Talks a little bit about opportunity attacks. Other than that, everything else is sort of there. This gives me everything. This gives me my attacks. This gives me my actions. It gives me the attack modifier, the range for things, and what sort of damage it does. Any bonus actions I might have access to, what reactions I can take, and any limited use resources I might have access to as well. Okay, so we're going to jump in here and just, because there's a few errors in there, I'm going to just go back to manage and add a new action. No, I don't want to do that. I'm going to, where is the option to, there we go, that's right. I need to go back into the character and then do some adjustments. So we'll go down to my characters. Okay, there's my character. There we go. So I can copy this character, I can edit the character, I can delete it when I'm ready. That's the option just above where the character builder is, my characters. So I'm going to edit, because there's a few things that don't look quite right. So selecting that, it should bring up the character, and I can go through and make some adjustments. So I can go straight to the area I need to rectify. So I'm going to go with equipment and go into here and just check my inventory. There's my inventory. Okay, so I need to actually wear my chainmail. So I'm going to press the button that says wear, and I'm also going to select my greatsword. So that's what I'm going to wield. I don't know if it'll let you select your hand axe as well as your great weapon at the same time, but I'm going to select that so that I get the numbers for that as an option when I'm running my character. And I'll also want access to my longbow at some point, so I want that built into the mechanics of the character. Okay, so that should have adjusted everything now. Once I've done that, we'll go to what's next, and view the character again. It should have changed the armor class. It's just loading up. There we go, the armor class has been adjusted, and you can see that all of my attacks have now been listed because I have clicked that button that says wield. So I can see the numbers, how my great weapon or great sword works. I can see how my hand axe will work if I want to use my hand axe, my longbow, and it also gives me an unarmed strike. So that's all built and ready to go. So essentially it's all done. So that is essentially how you use D&D Beyond to build your own character, and I've built a fighter today. So look, if you found this video helpful or informative in some way, then please consider subscribing and sharing this content with other people. If you like this sort of thing, I plan to do this about once a week until I've got through all the classes so that you can see how to build all of the different classes that are available. And I'll be using different races as we go. So this is going to be an ongoing series. So if you like it, consider subscribing to the channel if you haven't already subscribed. Also hit the bell button to be notified when I go live. Now, if you want to support my channel, you supported my channel by watching this video, and I do appreciate it. Thank you very much. On top of that, look, if I don't do Patreon, but I do have affiliate links down in the description where you can buy stuff online. I get a small commission. You pay exactly the same price. Just go through that link, buy what you want. You do not have to buy the thing I've linked to, okay? So that's the book depository in Amazon. Now, if you have questions in the live chat, I'm going to go back through the live chat and respond to you. So don't think I have ignored you in any way, because I have not. If you weren't able to respond and ask questions and give feedback during the live chat, that's what the comments section's for. So by all means, type away. You can say hi to me. You can tell me if this was helpful to you. I certainly hope it has opened up and shown you how you can build your own character without too much fuss, and it will walk you through the process, and you don't have to just open up the player's handbook and try to fight your way through all the text. Okay, so hopefully this is going to be useful to you in some way. And hey, till next time, keep rolling those 20s.